Hello, hello. Welcome to another All Hands on Deck. I'm Katherine McBean, and today I'm joined by my wonderful friend and colleague, Mark Byford, aka the Bowler Hat Farmer. Hello, Mark. How you doing, my friend?
Katherine, darling, good morning to you.
We have got quite a lot to cover as quickly as we can this morning. I put a post out the other day after you and I talked recently, and the frightening reality of where we're at, we'll kind of look at first and how we got here. And then we're going to look at the solutions. Because again, so many people are out there complaining, they're so worried about this, that, and the other in farming, they're starting to realize the dire situation. But what we actually need is everyone honing in on the solutions. So you and I had a conversation the other day, and I went and did a slight bit of digging. It's incredibly worrying that the reality is in the last 2 years. Now, bearing in mind, you and I had our first conversation publicly about this in February of 2024. So nearly 2 years later, over 13,000 farms in the UK have closed their door, with thousands more lined up to do it. 13,000 farms in our tiny little country have closed their doors in the last 2 years. And what we need, farmers, I think, need to kind of focus in on here is it's not the inheritance tax that's done all those farms in, not even close. And whilst farmers are understandably not happy with that situation, I think what we need to try and get across to them is actually that is should not be your main concern right now. The bad guys, the globalists, big ag, big seed, big chem, all of them, they're coming for you to close your farms, and that's the reality. What are your thoughts, Mark, initially?
Okay, Katherine, that 13,000 is made up of now. Let's look at who farmers are. So we really have four types of farmers. So we have big landowners that nothing changes for, but they rent a lot of that land out to small tenant farmers. Okay. And those are the ones who make up the biggest percentages of this 13,000, I would say, off the top of my head. And the reason I say that is because when we was in Derbyshire earlier this year, we witnessed, because of solar farm, what one guy who owned 10,000 acres had 100 tenant farmers and wanted to break the farms all down to zero so that he could put the lot down to solar panels, because that would give him £1,500 an acre per year rather than £500 an acre per year, what he was renting it out for. So that makes up a massive amount of this. So as much as, yes, we've lost a lot of farmers, they've been very coy at how they've delivered this. And like you said, Katherine, this isn't about the inheritance tax. I know farmers are concerned about that, and but the problem is it isn't the big picture. Now, the reason I say it's not the big picture, Katherine, is because without inheritance tax being involved, 13,000 farms got closed down. So they found what they're doing, what the powers to be, the government, the WEF, whoever's doing this, is they're going, right, if we do push that button, we lose 13,000 farmers. If we push that button, we lose another 20 farmers. If we push that button, and that's what they're doing. They're systematically destroying the industry from the inside. So what we end up with is we've got big farm landowners, we've got small tenant farmers, we've then got family run farms, and then we've got big commercial farms. And within the tenant farms, you've also got council farms. Lots of councils have been selling off farmland for building, for all sorts of other things, what they think will benefit them other than keeping farming. So we've got four different types of farmers, but they're all being attacked slightly differently. So the inheritance tax really attacks the family run farm, what's owned by the farm. So that's one small segment in reality of things. What we then see is the big tenant farmers, the big 10, 20, 30,000 acre farms, hundreds of tenant farmers, closed all the tenancies down. And most of them, Katherine, bear in mind, were lifetime tenancies, family lifetime tenancies. Some of those families have been there 5-6 generations. They've just been shut down overnight because they've gone, for the next 50 years, I could stick that on there at 5. Well, I ain't going to be here after that, so it doesn't matter. This is what they're doing. They're systematically pulling the industry to bits. So this is worrying, and more so than anything, because the farmers don't know how to retaliate.
Yeah. And like you say, I don't think there's so many organizations in the background who are all aiming for the same end goal, which is this centralized global, let's call it farming, factory farming, roof
Yeah.
under cover farming, whatever you want to call it. So many organizations that are looking to go this route. So like I said before, it isn't just government. It is, you just can't pinpoint it to one organization. It's a number of different organizations working in tandem in the background, and these are globalist organizations. These aren't your little local friendly company. This is the big boys, and the trouble is the big boys own the little boys, whether they do directly or not, or indirectly, because if that's where you have to get your supplies from, because you're now limited on what you can do, because obviously localized production of maybe feed or seed or other things has been obliterated, or they're now owned by the big boys that they have to buy from there. And this is, I think we need to highlight how we reach this point a little bit, because obviously in the future we've got lessons to learn from this last few decades, because this isn't something that suddenly happened
No.
overnight. You and I know this has been building for a long time, which is why you and I have been speaking out for many, many, many years about our concerns, because we could see it coming down the track.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember working with a very small local production company. They produced biscuits and cookies, and they were a small village-based organization. And I watched over the years as they got a little bit bigger, and they were doing really well. And then about 20 or 25 years ago, I was in the office with them about something completely different. And Asda and Tesco and so forth were turning up to conduct initial audits to see if they were worthy of being able to supply the supermarkets. And I watched them over the months as they got themselves further and further into debt based on investment that they were demanded to do by the supermarkets, because that was the golden ticket. If you could get your product into a supermarket, you were set, you were done. But actually what they ended up doing was being held hostage almost by the rules and restrictions placed by the supermarkets to control them. And this is when I say the term with farmers, they got a little greedy. This is what I'm on about. It was very similar setup with the farmers as well. They saw this golden ticket.
Yeah.
And obviously farmers are meant, historically they know how to farm. That's what it was. The farmers knew how to farm. They weren't necessarily businessmen. But they saw the shiny Barbie being waved at them, and they sort of thought, oh, lovely jubbly, and ended up then getting tied into knots as time went on. And it's been the same with the people who've bought the modified seeds and there's certain chemicals. Once you're down that road, you end up getting stuck in a quagmire. And it's how you get out of that. And in time, you and I are going to help bring the solutions, and we'll talk about that shortly. But at the moment, I think we need to recognise that. We need to recognise that the dairy farmers had that situation, 3 decades ago now, with the Milk Marketing Board. They got a bit greedy, I'm sorry. And as a result, it's ended up they've shot themselves in the feet. Now, I'm not doing this because I want to sit here and diss farmers or have a pop at them, but we do need to recognise where we went wrong in order to ensure that in the future we create systems and solutions that don't allow for us to go back down this road and it happen again in the future, because we don't have much time. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I was speaking to agronomists 10 years ago, and they were getting concerned about how many genuine, authentic harvests we've got left, viable harvests we've got left on the soil we're currently using. We haven't got long. And I think that's what we want to get across today, is the guys out there, you're distracted by lots of different things at the moment, and that's valid. And I get that, because there is so much going on and it does feel chaotic out there. But this is our ability to feed ourselves. This is not something small. This is absolutely as big as it gets. And with that many farms closing down in the last 2 years, alarm bells have surely got to be going off. But what would you suggest were the key markers that kind of led us down this path? Again, we're not here to attack farmers, but we do need to be realistic about how we got in this position.
Katherine, there's so many things. And I think what the key thing for me is in all of this, that in any industry, people make good decisions, bad decisions. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the farming decisions that have been made with the incorrect knowledge. Now, and the reason I say that is because I've seen this, in so many family farms locally to where I am at present in Bury St Edmunds. We see all the time that farmers are on their watch, right? They take the farm over from dad, So granddad hands it to dad, dad hands it to me. I've got someone to hand it on to. And all the time they're desperate not to lose the farm on their watch. I can't lose it because that'll make me look bad. I've got to be able to hand it to my son or my daughter, whatever it might be, because, I handed it from dad. It's come granddad, great granddad. There's years and years of generations of fucking blood, sweat and tears have gone into keeping that farm going. So they'll do anything to keep that going. And sadly, anything has led to things that you and I might go, well, I wouldn't have done that, because we're in the position we'd go, for me, I'm absolutely 100% against subsidies. And one of the biggest reasons the farming industry is in the trouble it is now is because they took the subsidies. They took that money to keep themselves afloat rather than looking. And, Katherine, this goes back, way back, right? If you grow a crop, let's say wheat, barley, sugar beet, oats, maize, rapeseed, and they don't earn you any money, surely you would just go, I ain't going to grow them anymore. Because I tell you now, if a furniture manufacturer makes sofas and they earn £1,000 each, they make coffee tables and they lose £1,000 each, they'd soon work out, don't make the coffee tables, right? So farming's no different. Now, the problem we have is, as you rightly said yourself, Katherine, supermarkets, lots and lots of farmers went down the road of supermarkets, lots. The problem is, and I saw this years ago when I was in the fruit and veg wholesale trade, I used to work with a beautiful Spanish lady and her son who had a gorgeous tomato farm in England. And, they were here. She'd been here all of her life nearly since a teen. And they rang us one day and they said, you can't have any more tomatoes because we're going to supply Tesco's instead. And I said, oh, that's a shame. We used to go and buy a pallet load a week. And she said, yeah, so they're going to take all our tomatoes. It's great for us. They were there 6 months. 6 months. Tesco's never paid them a penny, messed them about, and they did have other supermarkets supply, in there as well. It wasn't just Tesco's, we'll say, but within that 6 months, the supermarkets had ground them to a standstill, hadn't paid them, hadn't supported them. And they then ended up buying the farm from them and leaving them in as managers. And this is what they've done over the years. Now, lots of the farmers took that golden chalice and thought, oh, bonus. And it wasn't. It was all by, it was all set up deliberately to destroy them. And Katherine, we've seen not one, not two, not 1 or 2,000, 1 or 200,000 farmers have closed over the past 50 years in farming. And that's just in this country. So once you start looking at the subsidy side and you realise why the subsidies were set up at the same time as the supermarkets was, right, you start to understand how this came to play. So farmers were given subsidies. So farmer now thinks, oh, well, actually, it doesn't matter what I get for the crop because I'm going to get my subsidy anyway. My subsidy's more than enough to pay all my bills. The supermarket then comes along and says, well, I know you think your potatoes are worth, £100 a tonne, but we only want to pay you £50 a tonne. Farmer goes, I'm still getting £50 a tonne. I've got my subsidies. Yeah, all right. The subsidies never, ever went to the farmer long term because they were stupid enough to give it away to the supermarkets. That was what allowed the supermarkets to build vast amount of stores, spend massive amounts of money, was all because the taxpayers paid for the subsidies that was given to the farmer, that was given to the supermarket.
And that's to add to that, I've just hastened to add to that. So that's the taxpayer is subsidising the supermarkets effectively. Not only that, so many supermarket workers work up to 20 hours a week. That's the contract they've got, and they then get the universal credit. But also there's those that are on the supermarket salaries, even working full-time, getting universal credits because the pay is pretty poor. It's not a living wage. So the taxpayer is then a second time round subsidizing the supermarkets. And these guys are making billions in profit. Sorry, Mark, I just had to put that in there.
Katherine, I'll go one further than that. If a supermarket takes someone on a 0-hour contract, they're paid £12,000. They're paid £12,000 just to take them on. And then once they're in the system,
taxpayer, are subsidising that, not the supermarkets. We're not eating into their profit. The taxpayer is doing it.
Absolutely. And then once they're in the system, they then, like you say, claim the universal credits. But Katherine, all this money has been stacked up and stacked up and stacked up against our national debt, which is all owed eventually by you and I.
Yeah.
And, so we've got to look at this. So the subsidies, in whatever form they came from, were and are still a major issue, in my opinion. Now, it might not be the farmers are not getting it now, and now we're up against the next stage of these subsidies. So originally the subsidies was on production of food, to subsidise it, to make it cheaper for people to buy food. Excuse me. Now that's changed. As you can see behind, you might be able to see behind me, but there's massive works going on here, which they're putting a water pipe in. So just to give you an idea of stupidity where I'm sat at the moment, from Mildenhall to Essex in the 60s, they put a massive water pipe through to get rid of the water from Suffolk over to Essex because Essex hadn't got any water. Now they're putting a water pipe back in a different route from Essex up to Suffolk because we haven't got enough water here, so they're sending it back to us. This has cost, I think, 10 billion. And this is what we're up against as taxpayers. But I know it's not for the farming side, but it's the water that they're saying the farmers need. And they're shipping it from one county to another and then shipping it back again and charging us 10 billion for doing it. This is ludicrous. Now, on top of the subsidies, Katherine, we also ended up with the other side. So we had the milk marketing board that held prices and tried to keep the farmers at a good price against sitting in between the farmers and the supermarket. That got disbanded. Grain marketing board got disbanded. What are grain prices? Grain prices now £152 in 1972. Where are we now? 2025. Grain prices about £152. Nothing's really changed apart from the cost of production's probably gone up about 500%. Yeah. So, Katherine, the challenge we've got is that the farmers haven't seen all this coming in. We've spoken about loads of this stuff. You know, we've got no farmers now holding their own seed. They're completely held by the seed companies. And if you get that seed, it's GMO seed, so it won't reproduce. You know, it's always, Katherine, it's always, please, sir, can I have some more? That's what they're always doing. The farmers are constantly going back to the supermarkets. Please, can I have some more money? They're going back to the government, to DEFRA. Please, can I have some more money? What point does the stupidity stop? And at what point do farmers just go, surely, Katherine, there's something wrong with the way we're doing this? Because I always say to farmers, look, you're fighting a game that you can't win. Yeah. They control the price of the seed, the price of the fertilizer, what you're going to be paid in subsidies, what they're going to allow you to grow. You might think you're an independent farmer. I can assure you you're not. You've got no freaking way of controlling what you grow and what you earn. No way.
I mean, even to the point, people don't understand. There's companies like Arla and other dairy companies. They're now insisting the farmers that work for them even tell them exactly where they're on their farmer's land, what field they're grazing the animal on. And if they're not happy with that, they tell the farmer to move the animals. Where's the autonomy gone for farmers? Where's the independence gone for farmers? They are nothing but slaves to the system at this point.
Katherine, just on that one, we've visited loads of dairy farms this year, and one of the things what they do is the cows have a collar. So when the cow goes into the dairy, they know exactly to the one drip how much milk that cow produces. Yeah. So, like you said, so they know what pasture it's been on. So they can say to the farmer at the end of milking, you need to move more. They've not got enough nutrition on that field. They can move them to. This is the problem we've now got, Katherine, is the skill set for farmers is dropping on one side, right? We've got farmers that are very clever now on looking at the finances of the farm because they've been forced to, because they're always working against the fact they're not earning any money. So they're always trying to penny pinch and corner cut deliberately to try and make ends meet, rather than looking at the basic facts. What are the basic facts? You're not earning any money out of what you're doing. So therefore, and Katherine, and this comes back again to the inheritance tax. The inheritance tax is an issue for one reason. Farmers say, if you end up with a £500,000 tax bill and you've got 10 years to pay that tax bill, and you look at it and you go, that's £50,000 a year, but the farmer only earns 20, there's no way he can pay it. Well, why, if he's got hundreds of acres, can he only afford £20,000 a year? Because he's been buckled by a system that's stacked up against him. If he was to say, do you know what, I'm not going to take part anymore, I'm going to go down the road and grow food. I'm going to go and get some potato seed and some carrot seed and some parsnips. I'm going to start doing my own veg boxes, my own meat boxes. I'm going to start having a mixed farm again, get rid of just the arable. Right? Suddenly, he's got money coming in every day. Katherine, I had a farmer phone me yesterday, and he said to me, Mark, he said, I just wanted to thank you, he said, because the advice you gave me and what I did, he said, I've started coming away from my traditional farming. He used to produce a lot of meat for supermarkets. He said, in the last few weeks, he said, I've sold a complete cow, 2 pigs, 8 sheep. He said, and I've got the same going out again next week. He said, and he said, that cow, rather than coming to £1,400, coming to thousands of pounds. And this is, Katherine, this is what farmers have got to understand. The public are desperate to support farmers. But the problem is, Katherine, tell me one person you know who wants to buy a lorry load of sugar beet, wheat, barley, oats, maize, rape. Nobody. They want to go to a farm gate and pick up a dozen eggs, 2 pints of milk, a bag of flour, a sack of potatoes. And if farmers only understood how they've allowed themselves to be played, and I do mean played by this system that's 100% all in bed with each other. The only people who are not in this bed are the fucking farmers and the landowners. Right? Yeah. And that's the point of fact. So they can't win the game. And all they're doing, all this system's trying to do is eventually close down the farms and take it away from who's got it. That's what this is about. Katherine, they're still going to farm, be assured of that. But they're going to farm differently. So in this country, they want us to farm energy and trees. That's what they want us to farm.
I was looking at the degree levels in agriculture, the courses that are available in the UK yesterday. Oh my word. I mean, I hadn't looked for a few years, granted. Now, the low level kind of, if you want to call them low level agricultural college courses, some of them aren't so bad. They still do husbandry, animal husbandry. They still do some of those bits and pieces. But something that never used to exist, as far as I'm aware, in terms of mainstream, was a degree in agriculture. Now, when you look at it, every single course I looked at in the UK was supported by our sponsors and industry partners. And you know damn well who they are. They're the seed company, they're the chemical companies. That is who it is. They're really pushing agronomy. Well, I worked in agronomy, Sunshines, and I'm telling you right now, it's all about the chemicals. It's all about the chemicals. Soil health, well, we'll test the soil health. Oh, what you need is X, Y, Z. And guess what? It's all chemical based. And this is what is being pushed into the young minds of those interested in coming into farming. They're promoting it now. You don't see the word farmer on there. You might see farm manager, but it's more likely to be consultant, farm business consultant or something like that. And these consultants, the only way they can earn real money is by selling product. And the products that they sell, I can assure everyone out there 100% are not beneficial to the soil, are not beneficial to our natural world, and are certainly not beneficial to any livestock that might go on it. And this is what is the future of our farming. If we do not turn this around, all you're going to have is fake food. And I mean fake food to consume in the future. And good luck looking for your rolling hills across Britain. Good luck for looking for the cows and the sheep and the pigs that are out there. They're not going to be there. They're not going to be there. It's going to be fake. And we're at a crossroads. We're on the verge of a precipice of losing all our ability for sovereign food production. And we're not exaggerating, are we, Mark, that we're at that precipice? We are there now.
No, that's where we are.
So we actually make change now, or we're screwed. And you and I know what the solutions are, or certainly a heck of a lot of what the solutions are. And that is for farmers to once again become self-sufficient. And bring back localized production. So you were saying earlier about, hey, you're producing these crops, where are they going to go? They're not going to go at the farm gate. But actually something we might want to think about pushing is opening up the old mills that are local old mills, so that at least some arable production can be done at a local level. Because we do, people do still want those products. But you're absolutely right. And we've used this term so much in the last few years, routes to market. If farmers are just producing one crop or one product, they are limited to one route to market at the moment.
And one income stream.
If they diversified back to mixed farming, they did an element of veg, they did an element of arable, they had the meat, they had the eggs, they had the veg, they had the dairy potentially. you are looking at multiple routes to market. So if we are led by the weather, and let's not go down that route, we all know what that looks like in terms of another conversation to have.
Fucking shit
But
here
we're
today.
all, yeah, it's all just so fake. But if with the weather being as it is in Britain, we do know it can be up and down at the rate of knots, and that's fine. So sometimes you are going to have a tough season with certain things. If you've got meat to sell, if you've got eggs to sell, if you've got milk to sell, if you've got other products you can sell, you can take the hard harvests, you can handle them because you have got a route to market still. But the trouble is, farmers don't see that right now. They see the route to market as being either the big processors or the supermarkets, and don't understand. And plus, what we also get from the benefit of that is not only does the farmer end up with more money in their back pocket, the consumer gets a far higher quality product for less money than they're currently paying. But also what you do is you bring back that local processing. So the farmer kicks the milk out in the morning, the processors pick it up, they make the cheese, they make the butter, they make the yogurt, whatever else it is. You can stimulate the local economy and have
Absolutely.
more local businesses sustained, which means greater employment in that area, less traveling about, people are less stressed because they can work within their local environment, and that product is then retailed in that local environment. And so it will take we the people to get behind the farmers. But at the moment I'm getting irritated by seeing these posts saying save the farmers, support our farmers. How are you doing that? What is your plan? Well, it's very, very simple. We've got the answers, but the trouble is people aren't looking at the moment, because I believe the farmers, us guys who genuinely want to help improve agriculture, I believe that movement is being hijacked right now by some very dark players.
Yeah, I'd agree. Oh well, Catherine, we witnessed that, didn't we? We witnessed that when we was in No Farmers, No Food. You know,
Yeah.
Catherine, backtracking, I did a degree in agriculture and horticulture, and
Did you?
yeah, I've got a pretty piece of paper from my mum. Never looked at it since, but mum has it somewhere. For me, when we went, we didn't. We were taught. Now, bear in mind, I went 40 years ago. We were taught nothing really about the chemical and seed companies. It was all about animal husbandry, looking after, understanding the fields, knowing what rotation was about. And one of my best friends, his daughter, was desperate to go into farming. She used to come and volunteer for me on my farm. She was a beautiful little thing. And then she went off to university and she said to me, I'm going to go off to Otley and I'm going to do this and so forth. Do you know what? She was desperate to become a shepherd. Desperate. Her first week there, I spoke to her, I said, how you doing, darling? She said, not quite thought what it's going to be. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I spent a whole week in the school this week learning about how to look after snakes and meerkats. And this is what they're teaching them in agricultural college. I said, well, that should go down really well, when you want to know how to, do lambing or calving, something like that. And she was struggling to get work experience on real farms because the farmers are too scared to take kids on now.
Yeah.
Catherine, when I was a kid, every fucking school holiday, all the kids worked on farms. There would be 5 or 6 of us on each farm. Where have we got to now that we can't give kids a good education in farming? That's because they don't want us to. That's because in the future, their plan is that we will have fields full of wheat that can produce shit what's sold in supermarkets in beautiful coloured packaging that's filled with every type of shite chemical and fertilizer you can put on it, and that will just slowly drip feed the poison we needed to be given so that they can make us ill, so they can give us something to keep us alive. It's like, where are we going?
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit. So we understand how we got here. Farmers, like you say, they were given the golden ticket, they took it, they didn't think of the long-term impact of that, they were just thinking about the here and now. I'm hoping as we move forward, lessons will have been learned and we don't end up going back down this road. We start thinking a little bit more sensibly. But a lot of farmers at the moment now, because of the current position they find themselves in, are probably very money motivated. And I think they probably were initially anyway, because it all sounded so wonderful, and they were sold a lie. But moving forward, farmers are struggling financially. They need to take back control of their own businesses, of their own farms, and they need to start dealing far more directly with the public. At the moment, you've got so many elements of production from when it leaves the farm gate to when it arrives on your plate. I mean, how many steps are there to get there? And what happens to that food in the meantime? Hello, preservatives. But actually, what we want to see happen is that food come from the farm gate, maybe hit one or two. Maybe you've got that milk product and it does need to go and be made into cheese, and then it needs to be sent to the retailer. Ooh, biggie. What a biggie. No, actually, you're making that we'll end up seeing a heck of a lot less Arctics on the road, for sure, if we did localized
Absolutely.
food production. Our roads now are horrific. They are horrific. And there are so many Arctics out there, and so much of it is food related. People don't
Yeah.
necessarily realize just how much of it is food related. Let's bring it back to localized production, but let's start at the basics very quickly. Mark, you take us through where a farmer is now and what they should actually be doing.
Okay. So, Catherine, one of the things which I did 2 years ago when you and I were working on No Farmers, No Food, and we all got disbanded quite quickly because they didn't like where we were trying to take the farmers.
It was hijacked. It was
It
hijacked.
was
I'm sorry
hijacked.
to
We
say
know
this
that.
out publicly. I don't care. This isn't Mark saying it's me. It was
And
James Melville and co. And they completely hijacked the all of us trying to do good work. Sorry.
so we all went down different roads. And I started to go down the road of doing the research behind the fact of who's doing the food production, who's doing the food selling, who wants to buy it. And I took myself on tour this year for 7 months to speak to farmers, growers, producers, butchers, bakers, greengrocers, fishmongers. I've spoken to them all. And in the same time, spoken in front of 20,000 people. We did 109 speeches, did all sorts of festivals, and really to try and understand what was needed. And then when I got home, it was kind of, I was starting to put a system in place while we were away. And while I got back, we'd already set up the website foodfindershub.org. And the principle behind the website, Catherine, and this, people say to me, oh, this is just about pushing your website. Well, it ain't. What I want to get across to people here, Catherine, is we need a new food system.
Yep.
And that food system, as far as I'm concerned, revolves really around, at this point, 5 things. So we have farmers markets, farm shops, community stores, then we have home deliveries, and we have food hubs. Okay. Now, at this point, I would say they are the 5 solutions to feeding this country in the future. Now, they worked in the past, Catherine.
Yeah.
They worked on mass in the past. The problem we've got now is there isn't the amount of farmers at this point to supply enough into those things for people to be able to find them everywhere. Now,
yeah.
What I see happening is if farmers don't want to go bankrupt, and most of them are not a million miles from that.
No.
We're only going to go one generation, Catherine, because the minute IHT gets a chance to get hold of these people, they're done for, right?
Yeah.
What we've got to do is get farmers to understand there is a different way to farm. And going back, if you took a farm and went back 100 years, farms have survived for thousands of years on the principle that they produced good products and sold them to the public locally.
Yeah.
And there's the key, locally. Now, we've seen a decline. Every village, around where I live, Catherine, every village had 1, if not 2 mills in it. Everyone had 1, if not 2 abattoirs in it. Yep. Everything's gone. They have deliberately pulled to bits the infrastructure. Now, what I've seen and what I've set about starting in place, and you've been involved, Catherine, right the way from the off with me on this, is that we set up a CIC, a community interest company, like it, that sits in between a charity and a limited company. Now, lots of people said to me, oh, Mark, you shouldn't have gone down the road of a CIC. You should have gone down the road of a PMA. You can't run a PMA in the UK successfully on a big scale because they close you down and you can't get a bank account easily, right? So now the CIC allows me to run legally inside the system, and it allows me to get funding from DEFRA, county councils and other people, right? Now, what my thought is, we've set up a website. The website sits in the realms of nothing more than an advertising forum for all farmers UK-wide. And I will say, Catherine, for those watching overseas, not just UK-wide, farmers overseas can register and draw the public to it just the same as UK farmers can. It's been set up for
and
worldwide.
Also producers and processors as well.
Catherine,
Local production.
this is about the butcher, the baker, the greengrocer, anyone who supplies food to the public, not via a supermarket, right?
Yeah.
We don't want them on there. They're not welcome. This is about the public being able to find good quality meat, good quality bread, good quality veg, eggs, dairy, groceries. You know, we've got people like Organity Advertising on there, Catherine, who run the food hubs. We've got Good Food Project on there. We've got people can go to for the groceries as well as the fruit and veg and meat and different things. Now, what we need is more farmers, more growers to go, look, they're right. We're not earning any money out of doing the system we're doing. We need to make a change. Now, Catherine, those changes are going to take time and resources. The problem that farmers have is the resources are dry. The problem is that DEFRA, our governmental department, that should be backing up and supporting farmers to make these transitions. They keep telling us they're worried about net zero, Catherine. They do not give a flying fuck. Let's be honest, right? Because all they're worried about is how many trees can we plant to charge people for it? You know, we know the minute you look into net zero, it never stacks up. There's not one bit of it that makes any sense. And not just me saying it or Catherine nodding in agreement. Go ahead and do your own research. You'll see within a few seconds that none of it makes any sense. You know, Catherine, let's be honest. When you've got the people who are telling us we're using too much carbon, flew their aeroplanes into a landing strip in the Amazon, what they cut all the trees down to put the bloody landing strip in place and build hotels. You couldn't write it. But this is about the farmers understanding the transition, what they need to go through now, coming away from one monocrop, one mono production, whether that's just beef, just wheat, whatever it might be, starting to put different crops on the farm in small amounts that they can sell directly to the public. And over the course of the next 5-10 years, they increase those small crops up and the big crops down.
Yeah.
The farmer I spoke to the other day, Catherine, what I was going to say, the one who phoned me about how much meat he'd sold, do you know the biggest thing he was chuffed with? He said, Mark, when I used to send my meat into the supermarket supply chain, I got paid in 8 weeks' time. He said, these people pay me before I even ship it.
Yeah.
Catherine, it's given them the cash flow they need to make these decisions. Now,
can you imagine what would happen if you and I had hold of DEFRA's budget? Everything would be done within 5 years. Everything would be done. It'd be flowing beautifully. We'd bring back the localized infrastructure. We'd bring back the support mechanism to go from that monocrop culture to a mixed farming approach. We could bring, I mean, none of it, bring back the local butcheries, bring back the local abattoirs, bring back the local processors. We could sort this and everything would be perfect in 5 years with DEFRA's budget. And I'm not even exaggerating out there. None of this is difficult. This is the thing. It's not complex. It's just, it's going to take a moment to transition. And if we don't have access to the DEFRA budget for the things that we're supposed to do, it will take longer. Whatever government comes in next, you and I need to somehow get hold of that DEFRA budget and sort this effing issue out like pronto, because it's not complex. It's not hard.
Well, Catherine, look, I'll tell you how simple this is to resolve, right? As we've all agreed, farmers are good at farming. They're not over necessarily brilliant business entrepreneurs. You know, that's not what their game is. Their game is to grow really good quality food. Now, so they're not their own marketing department. And once they start looking at all of this stuff, shit, I've got to do all this, right? So what we've done is inside the CIC, we've set up the food side of this, which is the foodfindershub.org. Now, the Food Finders Hub enables farmers, growers, producers worldwide to advertise on there and their local community find them, right? So if you want to find a butcher and there isn't one near you, just do a search, find a butcher, get one what ships directly to you, right? Cut out the supermarket supply. Now, the other side to this, Catherine, is who's going to pay for it? Now, I've, in the last 2 weeks, been blown away by the fact we've raised thousands really, really simply because the people who follow us want change. The farmers want change. The public wants change. So what we've said to people is, look, on the foodfindershub.org, you can go there. If you click on the support button, there's a donation button. You can make a donation for as little as £1. You can do that on a monthly repeating system. So you just put your details in, and it'll take £1 a month up to whatever you want to donate. We've got people putting in £1 a month to £100, £200 a month. Catherine, what we can do with this money is now start to build this infrastructure, what's needed. Now, one of the things that you and I both agree on, and I know this without even talking to you about it, right, is the fact that mills and abattoirs are an issue because they've all been closed down. So there's only the big boys left. We need to put mobile mills and mobile abattoirs into place that work within a small area. Now, Katherine, if you'd got a mobile mill and you could take that mill round to 50 farmers, right, after harvest, spend a day at each farm taking 2 or 3 ton of their wheat, their oats, rolling the oats, turning it into a breakfast cereal, putting it into a nice little bag with their own farm label on it so they can sell it in the farm shop. And people will say, oh, this is all ideology, Mark. No, this is working in different parts of the world. We've seen it. I've witnessed this stuff. Katherine, I'm on chat shows every day of the week talking to farmers all over the world. And if people think that we're going to import food after 2030, they're bloody delusional, right? This is all going to be over by 2030. They are trying to starve us out. If we don't change this system before 2030, we are done, right? I spoke to a farmer down in New Zealand on Monday, Katherine, and she was in tears. She said to me, Mark, she said, I don't know what to do. She said, they're taking all our land and planting trees on it. We've got to get rid of all the sheep. She said, there's 50% less sheep going to be in production by the end of next year. Katherine, our British farmers don't get a chance to sell their meat in supermarkets because of things like cheap New Zealand lamb that's been subsidised by the New Zealand government. Well, not anymore, it's not. That's coming to an end. So what are we going to eat? We've got to get our farmers to produce meat and produce it locally. But at the same time...
the livestock numbers have been intentionally slaughtered.
Absolutely.
I mean, the amount of livestock we're down in numbers, it's actually a little bit frightening. We need to be breeding more livestock. We need to be getting on with it, not taking the numbers down. We need to be increasing those numbers. And I would say to any farmer out there who is suddenly thinking, right, I've got massive heads of cattle and I've got nothing else. What do I do? Have you considered selling that heads of cattle out individually, one by one? You'll get a better price for it, and B, more and more people want to set up their own homesteading. They want to set up their own little self-sufficiency unit. Bundles of them would love to rear their own meat. There's always a solution, but we've got to look at it as a localized small business, direct to the end user. Again, saying that, you've got that arable farmer and he's suddenly thinking, heck, I need to get some beef cattle. Start working together, guys. And if you've got massive acreages, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of acres, chances are you're using big, huge, heavy impact machinery to farm that land, which is costing you a damn fortune because of the loans that you've had to take out. What about actually renting some of that land out, you, the farmer, working on a smaller acreage and sharing it with getting another farmer or farming family up and running, or maybe it's a community growing group or something else. There is always a solution. So you don't need to go to the supermarkets. You don't need to listen to DEFRA. You don't need to listen to the NFU. You don't need to go to the big processors, which, let's face it, that is industry factory farming. That's what it is. It's not farming, really. It's industry factory food production. It's disgusting. And how these animals are kept, how this poultry is kept. You don't even want to know. We can talk about that another time. It's disgusting. And that's another element, actually. Animal care. Now, a lot of our farmers are really good at it. Don't get me wrong, in terms of when you compare it to the rest of the world, they are.
Yes.
But our animal care could be so much better overall if we switch this way of farming. And that's another thing. Our soil is horrific. I mean, I can't even tell you how bad. I put out a post the other day about, remember when we did that soil testing, those farmers came along and basically the soil was dead. There was no life in it. There was no life in it whatsoever. It was totally dead.
Yeah.
Now, we could still have a white knight come out of nowhere this year, turn things around, start, excuse me, moving things in the direction we want to go. But the soil still is going to take time to heal. We don't have time to waste on that. And the best thing you can do is utilize animals and crops and plants and rotate them in a certain way and get that soil healing quick as a flash. Yeah. Quick as a flash.
Katherine, there's so much what farmers could do. If you want to grow beans on there, for instance, you could grow beans on there to put the nitrogen back in. You then plough that back in to give you more forage in the ground. You could put animals over it to graze it. Winter crops now, for things like turnips and things, put sheep over it. You get great fertilizer that puts nitrogen into the ground. There's so much farmers can do. Katherine, the problem is...
You save fodder crops as well. You save as in having to feed your animals. Run your pigs on that. They're going to root around and get everything out of there, and they're going to be very fucking happy. Thank you very much.
Katherine, the problem we've got at the moment is about, from where I sit now on the farming side, if you take when my great-granddad had the farm, they had up to 3,000 people help on the farm harvest. right?
Yep.
And they were contractors. They went farm to farm to farm, doing other people's work as well as their own, right? Now what have we got? We got normally a farm with two other people on it. They've got to use big equipment. Now, they can't afford to, at this point, they can't afford to put anybody else on the farm. Ask for assistance. Katherine, I put out a post the other day on the foodfindershub.org. People can go and volunteer. And we've got different opportunities on there what people can go and volunteer to do. One of them is to help on community farms. Katherine, we've got people begging us to find them placements on farms to help farmers, assist farmers so the farmers can stay in the game, right?
Yep.
If you're a farmer and you've got a small acreage where you've got some space there, you could put, let's say grow some vegetables. Tell us about it, because I tell you now, there's people out there who want to come and help you. There's Crops Not Shops. There's a classic example. They're a massive organisation across the UK. Che has done brilliant work to put their organisation into place to make sure. And we're funneling people into him, Katherine. One of the things we've also done on the site this week is announced the fact that we're doing litter picking and getting the volunteers to litter pick. Now, the reason I want people to litter pick, yes, Keep Britain Tidy was a brilliant campaign, and the Tidy Up Britain now what they're doing. But Katherine, this is about that poison shit not getting into our water supply and food supply. Everywhere. I'm sat here and I'm in the middle of nowhere, Katherine, and I look out the window here and all the roadsides are covered in litter.
Disgusting.
It's not good enough. That's all going into the ditches, all microplastics going into the food supply. We can't have it. And Katherine, this for me is when I set the CIC up and you started getting involved with us on the hub side, Katherine, we have got to all work together.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean you and I'm talking about the public. And that's what with the CIC we're achieving. The people who are donating into the CIC, the people who are going, this isn't good enough, we need to change. We need to be there in the future to assist the farmers, to assist not just in, and Katherine, I have to say this, farming, health, education, they all go together. And we need to be bringing all of those to the table. And I would say to anyone who's out there who's watching this, if you are concerned about the education system, the health system and the food system, and I'm going to include within that, we will do a lot with new media, Katherine, because they tell the bloody truth. Channels like yours are out there telling the truth about things. Right. We need to wrap those three things up, and the public need to help us achieve making these things right. Katherine, we're not asking people.
I would love nothing more than a proper agricultural education system.
Absolutely.
Nothing more. Because when we're up against freaking colleges and universities that are bringing in the chemical companies and the seed companies to train the new agricultural people coming forward, you've got a major problem. We need to go back to basics. We need to be teaching about husbandry, teaching about rotation, teaching about actually how to sow things and harvest things correctly and what to do with that produce. We need to go back to basics, and we need thousands and thousands of young people or older people coming up through the ranks and getting trained correctly. But right now, there is not one educational institute I can find in the UK that actually does that properly at that level. And we need to raise enough money through this to get one of those education systems off the ground. I feel very passionately about that, or we're going to end up back in the shit again.
Katherine, I wouldn't disagree. I mean, one of the things we've been looking at is obviously the community farms. The community farms, I think, allow us to build that inside that. That's one of the things. We've got people offering us land across the country now. What we now need is to raise the funds to get these things off the ground. Now, don't get me wrong, we're already doing some great work. We're doing lots of marketing support for local farmers, farmers markets across the country via our social media channels. What I would say, if anybody is watching this, and please go and support us on social media. Go and find the bowler hat farmer, because if you find me on social media, you'll see that we've got about 85,000 people now following us and helping to share. YouTube's really good to us as a forum. We're trying to get that up to 50,000 followers. So follow us on YouTube, the bowler hat farmer.
I'll put the links in the comments as soon as we're done. I'll put the links in there, guys.
But the big thing, Katherine, is we want people to get involved.
Yeah.
Go to the foodfindershub.org. Either stick yourself down to volunteer or stick yourself down as a donor and put a donation in. and you don't need to be a lot of money. This is less than buying me a cup of tea each month. Let's be honest,
Yep.
£1 a month people can join for. Yeah, Katherine, what I do want is, and I'm going to put out this appeal because I want one particular thing today for me. Right. I need one person. How we've set this, the volunteers up countrywide is county by county. So what I'm looking for is county coordinators. Okay. And I want one person to work alongside me as a volunteer that has the little bit of spare time and has a little bit of inclination of how to do this, and then set up those county coordinators and get them working with the people in their counties as we recruit people. Yep. This is absolutely fundamental. Now, Katherine, what I will say is you and I would both agree on the fact that we need to decentralise food, right?
All of it. All of it. Big
all of it,
me.
right? However, we need to centralise at this point, bringing the new food system into place. Yep. And I need help. I've got, at this point, about 100 volunteers sitting on the system, what have come on over the last couple of weeks, that I'm not getting a chance to speak to. And I need some assistance to get through this backlog of volunteers to see how we can best get those people to assist in what's going on. You know, before these people go, oh, well, no one's come back to me. We want to get back to you. I just don't have enough hours in the day. Yeah. I've got a lovely lady, Sarah, who's assisting me, and she's working in the background to put this all onto spreadsheets for us so we can run it on a database online. She's contacting people and saying, listen, someone will be back in touch. I've contacted all the people about what say they want to go into community farming. But now what I really need is someone to work alongside me to start putting these teams together all over the country. Yeah. Because, Katherine, we can do this. You know, you and I are like a fucking pit bull with a toy, right? And someone wants to take it away. We know it's not difficult to build a new system. We know what we've got to do. We know how to do it. We know who needs to be involved. What we now need to do is the people to step up and back us up. If you are not happy with what's going on in food, health, education, then join us. You know, get involved. That's what I can say.
I mean, I didn't call this podcast All Hands on Deck for no reason. I knew there'd come a time when we'd have to have a call for arms, as it were, for certain actions. And this podcast, if you're out there, and it doesn't necessarily have to be food, if you're looking at education or you're looking at health or you're looking at other things, and you need a call for arms, you need people to get involved. Because a lot of people I've found, and I get it, people are tired. They've had a lot to deal with over the last 5 years or so. I could completely understand that. But actually, it has to come down to we the people. Who else is going to save us? Who else is going to do it? And it's very nice to, maybe someone will come in out of left field and somebody will come and change it, but we cannot rely on that. We need to get moving. And this is all part of the process of awakening, for want of a better term, is the fact that we understand we've got personal responsibility to get involved. And that has to start with us and then at community level. And this is your opportunity to do something like this. So go on to the food fight. You know, you've got to get onto these organizations and start helping now. And something else I would like to put out there into the broader public: if any of you big farming accounts, and you know, Jeremy Clarkson or any others out there who got caught up and bought into the No Farmers No Food action that actually resulted in a nothing burger, I'm afraid, and I'm terribly sorry, but I'm just going to say it as it is because I'm beyond caring now. This is too important for me to be diplomatic and worry about other people's feelings when they've come in and hijacked the movement. So if any of you big farmers out there with the big platforms are starting to realize this, and you genuinely want a conversation of how we change this, we're not messing here. We're not here. This is not some ego show. We're not here in a vanity project. Mark and I have given untold hours over the years of our own time, not getting paid for it, our own time. I went and worked undercover back in the early sort of 2010s. I went and worked undercover in agronomy, in seed merchants with the chemical boys. It was horrific, but I had to understand it. I've put myself through the mill. Mark's put himself through the mill, and we do it all over again. It's not that we resent doing that, but what it means is that we've spent all that time looking for the solutions. We do understand what needs to happen, and we are completely authentic and genuine. Test us. We're not here to do some sort of ego show or vanity show. We're here to bring solutions. We're here to save food sovereignty in this country, and we're absolutely genuine of it. So if you do want to find solutions, if you want to actually help farmers, like really help farmers, not just say, oh yeah, save our farmers. No, actually flipping well do it. get in touch with myself or Mark. We're both on social media. You can contact me here. You can contact Mark on Facebook. You can go through the Food Finders Hub, send an email in, get in touch with us. We want to help. We actually do need to unify right now and find the solutions together and get these farmers out of the shit and get things changed, get the transition moving. It is going to be hard for a few years. The public can help through the Food Finders Hub. There are so many different things you can do. But one thing I would suggest is while we go through this transition, at the very least, start growing your own food. Go back to basics. Do it yourself. Start looking at that. You're going to be a lot healthier for it. Your land's going to be a lot healthier for it. And actually, if you've got a glut, you can share that with your local community. Farmers are going to have a transition and we are all going to have to support them. But the first thing we need these farmers to do is hone in on reality, look at the truth, whether you want to look at it or not, and start working with us so we can help you get these solutions in, start this transition. And that, I'll tell you something, you're going to save your country if you do this, because at the moment we've got a country full of people who are unhealthy. They're eating convenience food. And yes, we've got to change the structures throughout. We've got to look at that, because at the moment, everyone's working all the hours God sends. Everyone's living on next to nothing. And actually, it's really hard to then think about, oh, my nice home cooked meal from scratch. And a lot of people don't know how to do that as well. So that's another part of the education we want to do through the Food Finders Hub, is start looking at how we work with whole foods and how we can cook them from scratch, and maybe batch cooking and all that sort of thing. So this is a bigger picture, but we're looking at all of it. It is a bigger picture. The whole lot needs to be decentralized. But my goodness me, can you think of a more important subject than food? Probably not. It impacts everything. And we genuinely want to make a difference. So those big farming accounts out there, those that are actually really wanting to make a difference, if you work for the NFU, if you work for DEFRA and you're not happy with what you're seeing, or you want to whistleblow, come to us. We will help you. We will guide you. Let's all come together and start putting these solutions into place, because trust me, Mark and I, when we say we do not have much time. 13,000 farms in just 2 years are gone. How many? And that's up to 24. How many are we losing this year? How many are we losing in 2025? How do we get that land back? We've got to start now. This is the fight for our lives. And get onto the Food Finders Hub, start working through that, because actually, whilst it seems so massive, if everyone takes a small step, you're going to suddenly start to see a difference. If everyone gets involved and takes a small step, and if you can't physically do something, donate £1 a month. I'm a single parent on very, very little income. I could donate £1 a month, and I will be donating £1 a month. I'll actually be donating a little bit more, but everyone can find £1. We've got to do something. We've got to do something, Mark. And I, for one, would love to extend out a hand of peace to all the farmers out there and say, come and talk to us. Even if you've got questions, or you think, oh, you're a bunch of shysters, come and talk to us. We've got nothing to hide, nothing.
Katherine, I think what's important to understand from all of this is, the challenge we have is the time frame we have to do it in.
Yeah.
Now, we're nearly into 2026. Now, it was never, ever about the 2030 agenda. It was always the 2025, 26 agenda. This winter, we know we've still got to deal with bird flu. We're still going to have to deal with TB. We're still going to have to deal with blue tongue. All of those things are sent to destroy our centralised food system, right? Now, that's all because they want to push the price of meat up. The problem, Katherine, we have at the moment is the price of synthetic lab-grown meats up here and farm-produced meats down here. They need to push that up at the price of bringing that down. And the minute that gets cheaper, people will go, oh, I know which one I'll have. And that's what they're working on. They're working on pushing the price of meat up so that we think synthetic shite meat is a good way to go. And I ain't having it, right? Now, a lot of people, Katherine, will say, oh, I can't afford to go to a farm shop. Right, you can't afford to go to a farm shop. And I hate to say this, Katherine, right? But when you look through people's shopping baskets these days, they'll buy 2/3 of their shopping will be shit and 1/3 of it will be food, right?
Yeah.
Start looking at what's in your basket. Ask yourself, do you really need that 6 packets of sweets for the kids this week? Would you be better off making them, something nice and healthy, some broccoli sticks or some carrot sticks and some dips or something? See, it's really easy for us as parents. And I talk, myself included here, Katherine, when I think when I was younger, when my kids were young, what they had to eat, their mum was a really good cook. She cooked everything from scratch, but they were spoilt with takeaways, spoilt with sweets, spoilt with the shit we now know is bad for them, right? And Katherine, this is where we've got to educate people. This education goes back to the parents, the grandparents. We need everyone to be involved. This isn't just about, you know, oh, well, I could make a pretty little pamphlet or something and drop through people's letterboxes. This isn't about this. This is about making us proud to be part of our country again, and proud to exist with inside that country, proud to be healthy, proud to be, you know, Katherine, look at the litter situation. That's just one tiny thing. What's changed in our 50 years on this planet, you know? When I was a kid, if I'd have dropped a piece of litter, I'd have had my arse beat. In fact, I'd still get my arse beat by my mum. She's nearly 80 if I dropped a piece of litter in front of her.
My mum saw me drop something now, she'd whip me for sure.
Absolutely. You know, now, Katherine, and I don't say that kids need beating and abusing, but what we've got to do is we've got to get back to some real basics in this country. And then basics have been deliberately eroded. The basics of a family unit, for instance, Katherine, where mum used to stay at home and she would walk the kids to school and then go home and make sure dinner was prepared. She, you know, these
cook
things
from scratch with whole food.
Absolutely. You know, and Katherine, when I think what my mum went through when we were little to make sure we had good food on the table, you know, it's, you know, I just worry about where we're going to be in another generation. This is about us, our generation especially, taking stock of where we are and doing the change what's necessary for our kids and grandkids before it's too bloody late.
Yep. 100%. The solutions are here, guys. The solutions are here. You either step into it or you don't. Mark and I have been independently, individually blowing this horn for over 15 years. Together, we've been doing it for the last couple of years. And what we've seen is things going downhill. This is no longer about listening to the big accounts. This is no longer relying on there being food in the supermarkets. There'll always be pretend food in the supermarkets at some point. You're not gonna not have something to put in your face, but what is that doing to your health? What's that doing to our local environment? What's that doing to our soil? What's that doing to our children's future? We're done. This is the line in the sand. There is no time, there is no faffing about, there is no negotiation, there's no compromise. It goes the way we need it to go, which is a decentralized local production system that starts now, or we're all screwed. And I don't like to leave that on a negative, but we're going to have to tie off here. But I do see that we've got so much potential moving forward. And like Mark said, if all you're able to do right now is get a bag and go and collect the rubbish, you live in the countryside, you know what the countryside lanes are like now. I have to go and do it at the end of my road, probably every other week. Go and get a bag, pick up litter. Let's at least start making the place beautiful again. Let's at least start taking pride again and stop this horrible stuff, toxic stuff, getting into our water systems, getting into our soil, and start encouraging others around you to at least even start thinking about this. And to the farmers and producers out there and the processors, the local processors, we're here. We want to work with you. We want to support you. Get onto the Food Finders Hub. Start seeing what's available. And if you've got questions, just contact us. We're more than happy to try and get help out to you.
Absolutely.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Any last words, Mark, or are you all good?
Katherine, I think there is one thing we should do to end this on. I think we should look at, and I'm sure we'll put out a post about this, look at doing a live where we can get loads of people onto this live to talk about the next step for this and the next, what the solutions look like, how people can be involved in those solutions and really start to put something amazing together.
Yeah, I'll be happy to facilitate that. Just let's talk about that, my friend. And if you're out there and you want to know more, go to that site. There's loads of other sites out there. Start educating yourself. We'll have more to come. But the bottom line is we've lost 13,000 farms. We cannot afford to lose anymore, but we all need to get involved. And that is how you truly support the farmers. So everyone, thank you. God bless. All have a wonderful weekend and let's start changing our country.